So this video is about applying to Oxbridge when you're part of the Russell Group. Oxford and Cambridge are part of the 24 universities that make up the Russell Group, and I have a student with me today who did that indeed. So hello there, Alex. Introduce yourself. Tell us what A levels you did.
Hi Tim. So I did history, English literature and sociology A levels, and I'm a year 2 student.
Fantastic. Okay then. What's this Russell Group about then? Why did you get involved, and when did it happen?
Well, I think it was sort of around the end of year 12, sort of summertime, I suppose. About 30 or so students, 30 or so of us received this email, asking we'd like to be part of this Russell Group, as I'm sure if you're watching, you would have received that email as well. But I wanted to get involved because, well, it just seemed like such a useful resource to me. And so when I went, it was a chance to sort of start figuring out what I wanted from uni, what I wanted from my future, which throughout most of year 12, if I'm honest, hadn't really crossed my mind. So this was a way of bringing it to mind and getting me to think about it as soon as possible. And soon I found out that I was coached by a member of staff called Sarah Trolley, who recently graduated from Oxford, I believe.
Indeed, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's right. Along with some help from others, to convincing me to apply to Cambridge, which is obviously one of the Oxbridge universities. So, as Tim mentioned, they're in the Russell Group, but they are the top echelons of the Russell Group. Arguably the top 2 universities in the country. Being part of the Wednesday afternoon meetings was a massive help for me. It was a confidence booster and sort of allowed me to think, this could be possible for me. I could do this.
Okay, interesting stuff. So what did you get up to in these Wednesday afternoon Russell Group meetings?
Well, it sort of started off with just the first couple of sessions I remember were just talks from you and from Sarah, talking about what we were going to do, and it was also getting to know people who were in there, which was nice because it's sort of making friends who have the same goal as you, which is pretty important, I think, for college life in general. And some of those are still my close friends now. But after those first 2 sessions, we sort of started to think about the personal statement, which is, probably daunting to everyone watching this, and was certainly to me, because when we started that around, I think, May, it was, to be fair, my first draft was not very good at all. And luckily I was part of the Russell Group meeting, so that could be called out, so that could be nipped in the bud, so to speak, and you could tackle the problems early. And even though I think a lot of people, despite how daunting it was, thought this personal statement business is going to be 4,000 characters, which is how much you have, including spaces. I mean, 4,000 characters, I'm going to get out of the way, and I can get on with my summer. And you soon find that it's much more complicated than that, and you go through 5 or 6 drafts until it's something resembling what you want to send to your 5, 4, whatever universities. So yeah, it was really what we were doing in the sessions started to become more about personal statements as it went on. And luckily, the expertise was there with you and with Sarah to help us all do that.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, it's a sticking point for lots of our students, especially the Russell Group students there who want to get things absolutely sort of spot on. You're right, you have to take your time, don't you? And you have to redraft. So that's really important information for our up and coming students who are looking at applying to know about as well. So you did that, but I also know you did something called SuperCurricular sort of activities. Can you explain a little bit about what you did for yours?
Yeah, so I've applied and had offers to study English at university. So when I was thinking about that, I sort of had to think, what books do I need to read to become a more rounded English student? And this actually really helped with my A levels as well. So it, you know, sort of in the transition phase between year 12 and 13, my learning massively accelerated, and that was partly because of the Russell Group sessions, you know, convincing me, or not convincing me, or mandating that I had to do all of this supercurricular work. Now, you may be familiar with extracurricular, which is sort of doing bits and pieces around, but supercurricular is really a different ball game, really immersing yourself in your subject, which is again daunting. But once you you know, if it's a subject you love, it's a subject you really want to study, it's really nothing but enjoyable. I mean, so for English, I was advised to read books of all different eras, from, you know, 19th, 18th centuries up until the present, which was just, it was brilliantly enjoyable, because I could get experience with all these different niches in literature and find out what I really enjoyed. And in fact, actually, it's sort of, I was looking at the university courses then, and it allowed me to look at, say, the Liverpool course, which is actually where I've ended up going, and saying, oh, I'd really like to do the Irish literature, because that's where I found my niche was when I was doing the supercurricular stuff.
Okay, right. That's really interesting. So it opened up, as you say there, sort of more literature to you, which then, by the sound of it, made you look more specifically at the degree courses at these Russell Group universities. Yeah. So you mentioned Liverpool there. I know you're going to Liverpool. I know that you looked at Cambridge. What did you look for, therefore, when you were going to visit universities? Was it the place? Was it the degree? Was it both of those things?
Yeah, well, you hear a lot of people talk during this process. You hear a lot of people talk about a gut feeling when you go to a place, and it's true. You do get a sort of a response, because it's so important to you, your future. You go there and you think, do I want to spend 3 years, maybe more, at this place? Mm-hmm. You know, we actually were lucky enough to have a few trips out in minibuses and coaches and things to go and see certain unis. I remember we went to see Bristol.
Yeah. Long day. A real long day, but worth it, wasn't it? Yeah. Absolutely.
But for the purposes of this conversation, I think the Selwyn trip is something I'll touch on, because it was just a minibus of us, I think. Mm-hmm. On that one, well, first of all, I should mention that the people that went on that trip were really lovely, and it was a really nice opportunity in that respect. But you know, the University of Cambridge were kind enough, well, the Selwyn specifically, to let us look around that college of the university. For those who don't know, there are 30 colleges in Cambridge, mm-hmm. And you can choose any of them, apart from a few which are restricted to senior students. But Selwyn is open for undergraduates. But as I say, I got that gut feeling when I went in there that this was the college I wanted to apply to. It was small, sort of secluded, very beautiful architecture, lovely halls and things, and just a little bit outside town, but not so far that it, you know, the centre of town was inaccessible. To me, that was perfect. But others might prefer being right in the middle or a little bit further away.
No, that's fantastic. Yeah, they're so different, those colleges, aren't they? Now, talking about those colleges, I know that one of the things you did was you took part in the Perth Schools mentoring scheme, whereby we were able, I think, to link you up to a mentor at one of the Cambridge universities, an English undergraduate.
Indeed.
Okay, yeah. Tell us about that if you could.
Yeah, so it wasn't at Selwyn College. I think I remember it was Magdalen College, where I, you know, because Long Road is so nicely situated in town, I could just walk and go and see this student. And she very kindly, is an ex-Perth student, so she came from a private school background into Cambridge. But she was studying English there, and she gave me about an hour of her time. And she was a first year student, so not too, you know, it was the not too distant future for me. Yeah. And so she could sort of relay her experience to me of studying at Cambridge, a different college, but I think it sort of universally applies. And she said what she enjoyed, what was difficult. She was frank with me, and really there was no formality to it. It was just a transparent, honest conversation, and that mentoring scheme really helped me as well, on top of all the other things provided by the Russell Group meetings and etc.
Fantastic. That's great news that worked well. We sometimes can't link students up to everyone who applies because we try to go with the actual specific subjects and all that. So it is good that English is a popular subject, so you were lucky to get that student. I'm glad it worked well for you, and we're working with that again next year, so that's really good. So in the summer you looked at universities, you knew which sort of ones you wanted to go to. You came back in September then, obviously, year 2 student. You knew that the year goes quickly because your first year went quickly there. You now know what's required of you. When do you have to send your application off for Oxbridge? Can you remember what date?
It was, I think, it was October. It was 15th of October, I think.
That's the deadline date. That's right. Yes. So not long after we get back, because we don't get back till about the 9th of September. So it's pretty full on at that point. Give us an idea then, about you completing your personal statements and anything else that was going on at that time.
Yeah. So I got back, like you said, early September, and you're thrown straight into it. But luckily, the summer gives you a chance to really think about your personal statement. So you're very eager into the first Russell Group session back to show just you and Sarah the personal statement and how it is. And September is really a month of really streamlining it, making it perfect, and beginning of October as well, because believe me, you'll be doing it right until the deadline. And it's just that phase is like I just said, it's the perfecting of phase. And yeah, that's all I can say about the September period. Really, it's about getting the personal statement right, getting it off, and I think by the end of it, you do feel a certain satisfaction. And I believe I did send it off on the 15th of October, or maybe the 14th or something. But
yeah, you sent it off before then, yeah. So that was good, But it still feels like a tight deadline, doesn't it? But you got yours off in good time, yeah.
Yeah. And another thing I wanted to touch on actually is that October date, that October deadline is brilliant for your studies in year 2, because although when you get back it's extremely stressful, it's not as stressful in my opinion as the deadline that most people have for non-Oxbridge universities, which is, well, I actually don't remember the date for that one because it was
15th of January.
15th of January, exactly. Now,
yeah,
15th of January, it does still give you a little bit of breathing space before the exams, but it does, it's just more time where you have this university thing distracting you, where you can't focus as much on your A-levels. So when I sent in my Oxbridge application, it meant I applied to all of my other universities with it, and that was just, I could put it out of my mind temporarily. And I had from October onwards with 100% dedication to A-levels and EPQ or whatever you may be doing. So that was the October deadline, while it seems annoying, is actually to your advantage.
Absolutely so, yeah. And I know then still, and that's actually great advice, because as you say, you can start to really get sort of deep into your 3 subjects then and give time there. But I know you also then had to do an assessment, did you not, for the Cambridge University? You had to do almost like an exam style sort of paper on the 30th of October. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that's right. So it's only half a month later, after you've sent it off, that you have to do this English exam called ELAT. Forgive me, English Literature Application Test, I believe exactly. Is what it's called. Yeah. So you sort of basically, whether you have to take that test if you want to study English at Cambridge, basically. And on the basis of that, you get an interview. And if you get over a certain, it's actually very blurry to me now, but it's quite difficult, because if you have to get over 50 out of 60 basically to be guaranteed an interview. So I spent the entire month of October preparing for that, with help from teachers at the Russell Group, printing exams off, getting my English teacher to mark them, doing mocks. And I think I actually ended up doing 6, which not everyone does as many as 6, but probably at least 4 or 5 is how many mocks you want to do, because I think I remember by the last mock is when I really got it, because it's a very specific exam technique which will be quite alien to you based on normal A levels. So they're looking for a very different thing to what normal A levels are looking for. It's almost a flair they're kind of looking for. But you do get used to it after you do those mocks. So I recommend practicing for it.
I think that's perfect advice. Yeah, fantastic. So you did that, you sent that off. I think they also then, because they look at lots of contextual data, they've looked at your application form with your predicted grades on it. They know you've been doing some supercurricular activities, so they know that this is going well. They've got your assessment there from your ELAT. And I believe then they also wanted one of your essays. Was it History Boys or something we had to send off so they could have a look again at some more work?
Yeah, that was what I sent off. But I'm trying to remember who else applied for English, but I chose to send off. Basically, it gives you quite a lot of freedom, really, because you can choose any of your English work from A levels from the last 2 years, and it means you can choose your very best, which is actually one of the most freeing aspects of it. You think, I did so well on that, and for me, that was the first piece of coursework, which. We haven't had it modulated yet, but I managed to max it out, and I thought it was an eye-catching mark, and it was a good essay, and it had, I felt it had that flair that the Cambridge professors would be looking for, the admissions team would be looking for, and so I sent that in actually in the post, and it's another little thing that you can use to your advantage. So. One of the good things about applying to Cambridge or Oxford is you have a multitude of things which you can get right. So if you get something a little bit wrong, I think, for example, my ELAT didn't go quite as well. I might have gotten about 45 out of 60, but I still got the interview because I did so well on my personal statement and probably on that History Boys piece of coursework as well. So it was, that's one of the good aspects of it.
Yeah, so you got invited for interview. I believe you did a mock interview at college with Sarah Trolley and another Oxbridge alumni in preparation. Can you remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that. So that was in December, I think. So there were 2, Sarah and, like you said, another Oxbridge alumni sort of conducting, like you said, a mock interview. I think 2 of us were doing it, and it was done after school, so it was quiet, and it had that atmosphere that the real interview actually feels like that. It's sort of a bit of a deadly quiet. So it really was a mock interview in that sense. And but the advantage of doing this mock was, as soon as it was over, I think it lasted about 20 minutes to half an hour. It feels like longer. When it was over, they gave me my feedback immediately. And for me, the struggle sometimes is being logical, to be honest. And they pointed out when I'd said very nice things about a text that they'd given me, but I'd missed something because I was thinking too hard or overthinking it. Now, they might give you a different criticism, but at least you find out where you're struggling a little bit. So that was something else that was immensely helpful on top of the other mock interview, which I'm sure you'll introduce.
Indeed, that's right. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of mock interviews around there for you, but they were preparing you well, and they gave you that sort of feeling that you can maybe go in for the real thing, which I think in your case was 16th of December, so really quite late. But you went to Selwyn, you were invited in to do interviews. I believe, is it 2 interviews about 20-25 minutes long? Could you let us know what it was like?
So it was an experience. even though I didn't end up getting in, which I was disappointed by, but not devastated. But so, you know, but it was an experience. One of the interviews, the first one, the main one, was about 25 minutes long. The second one, which was conducted by sort of head of studies, sort of figuring out your work ethic, is basically what that was for. That was 10-15 minutes. And you're just sort of guided into this waiting room with all the other candidates in there. Now there were a lot of people talking in there and chatting. Personally, I was pretty nervous. I was sort of sitting there on my own and just chose to read to sort of take my mind off it, because I did not want to think about the interview because I knew I would overthink it. But once you're in the interview, and I found this for the first interview especially, which is subject specific, so it was 2 English professors in there. It flowed so nicely, and I think all of the tension immediately went away. And it was, even though obviously it might not have gone as well as I thought because I didn't end up getting in, it just felt natural to talk about your subject with 2 people who love it as much as you do. So the interview, once you're in, isn't as scary as it's made out to be. I think it's you hear sort of horror stories from people, and I think you sat in on a few interviews.
Indeed, yeah.
But the best advice I can give is just prepare and read. And also, you'll probably be told this time and time again, don't put anything in your personal statement which you don't know about. And if you put it in there, make sure you research it quickly after, in depth, because they will ask you about it. And luckily, in my interview, I know this isn't the same for every interview, they didn't actually spend much time on my personal statement. But I do think they rooted what they did talk about in the subject matter of my personal statement. They didn't look at it directly, but I felt like they were going from that. So in-depth preparation, and you'll be comfortable in the interview. You won't be squirming in your seat.
I think that's a really good point. And as you say, that I've been lucky enough to be invited by Selwyn to actually be a fly on the wall, for want of a better word, watching these real interviews going on humanities and with the sciences as well. And it's always very clear that if a student or an applicant, an interviewee who goes in there and doesn't really know what they've put down, or rather the depth of it, it immediately comes to mind. And even to someone like me, you don't have to know what the subject's about to see when somebody's not really sort of deeply understanding what they're trying to talk about. So I think that's absolutely crucial information that you've just given there. If you're going to put it in, make sure you're confident about talking about it. Make sure you know what it's like. Now, the good thing for you there, it was clear that they knew that what you put in your personal statement, you knew about it. You were clear about it. You got the nuances of that sort of that literature. So that's maybe why they went on to something else. But I have seen students, and we've had some ex-students at Long Road in the past who have fell at that hurdle, and that's when the interview becomes a very long and difficult interview. So cracking advice there. The interview went well. You then got your results January time, as you say, but you've decided to go to Liverpool, which of course is a fantastic university. It's part of the Russell Group as well there. You've said you get a gut feeling for a university. Give us the gut feeling. Why Liverpool? What grabbed you there for with Liverpool? That thing that, you can't really sort of explain, but you just know it's right.
Well, for me, Liverpool was the perfect blend, because you talk about people talk about campus universities and city universities being the 2 archetypes, and we went to see Bristol, which was an obvious city university, because Cambridge, people say it's essentially is a university, because the same with Oxford, it's just made up of all the colleges. Bristol was similar to that, not to the same extent, but you're in the city and the university is immersed throughout the city. And then you have the campus unis, and I went to see York because I applied there, and we also went to see UEA as a college. and they were distinctly on a campus. So you had a student village at the centre, you had everything on site, which appeals a lot to some people. Now, even though the York campus was very close to the city, the idea of being on a sort of, if I wanted a real city rather than a fake constructed city, as it was in my mind, which is what the campuses were.
Yeah.
And but Liverpool combines the best of both worlds, and it's a campus. Everything is together in the middle of the city, which was perfect, and it's extremely rare as well. And when you get there, I mean, I'd been there twice before, so I think there was a certain familiarity when I went up there. I know this place, and I felt nostalgic. But it's a very unique city with the red brick architecture. It's actually the original red brick universities, because another name for the Russell groups is red bricks, and Liverpool was what that was named after, because it's all red brick up there, and it's also by the coast, which makes it quite unique. And you hear people talk about the friendliness of Liverpool, and also the music scene, which to me specifically was really important, because although course takes priority, the appreciation for music up there was, honestly, it dwarfed York, Bristol, any other place. So Liverpool just had so much appeal to me, but others might go to Bristol and have that same feeling.
I know you liked Bristol, didn't you? But as you say, Liverpool was the place when you went there, you thought you got to go. So that's a good sort of area for us to end up with, really, on that one. Don't just look at the universities sort of, with a prospectus. Don't just apply because, it's got a reputation. What you're saying is go visit, because you'll just get a feel for the place. Yeah,
exactly. It's the honestly, I can't stress that enough, is visiting. I visited 4 out of 5 of my university. The 5th I was never so interested in, but because I sort of applied to it because I wanted to apply to 5 unis. But the 4 I was interested in, I visited all 4 of them, and I don't regret a single one of those trips.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, well worth the while there, because as you say, you're going to spend 3 years, sometimes longer, in that city, wherever that may be. So you've got to enjoy it. Okay. I reckon you've rounded up everything we need to know there, which is fantastic. So I really appreciate that. All I'm going to say, therefore, is good luck in your degree at Liverpool. It's going to be fantastic. Let's hope that you get to go. I know it's difficult times for us all, but make sure you enjoy what you do, and come back and visit us, because our students who want to follow in your footsteps would like to hear from you. Will you do that for us?
Do my best, Tim.
Okay, fantastic. I really appreciate your help tonight. That was 30 minutes. That went real quick.
It didn't. It's like my interview.
Crazy. Yeah, there you go. That was great. Okay, so best of luck in the future. Keep in touch.
Yes, Tim.
Cheers. Thank you now. Bye-bye.